Lyra walked alone beneath the twin suns of Varela Prime, her violet skin glowing faintly in the late afternoon light. She moved through the marble streets with her head bowed, listening to the echoes of laughter that drifted from the Grand Plaza. Other citizens passed by without a glance, their eyes fixed on business or pleasure. No one smiled at Lyra. No one offered a greeting. Since birth, she had carried the mark of differenza, rare luminescence that her people called a curse. Every step she took reminded her that she did not belong. Each morning, Lyra awoke in her small chamber atop her family's spired home. The walls there were cold and white, silent, except for the soft hum of the city below. Her parents spoke little. To her, as though her presence reminded them of something best forgotten. At the simple wooden table, she ate alone. The meal was nourishing, but her heart felt empty. She longed for a single word of comfort, a kind look, a gentle touch. But the world she knew offered her only isolation. In the marketplace, Lyra paused by a stall of shimmering fabrics. She reached out to stroke a bolt of silk, imagining a dress that might hide her glow. The vendor noticed and hurried away, muttering that her light unsettled good customers. Lyra's hand fell to her side, and she swallowed the sting of shame. She wondered how her life might change if someone saw her glow as beauty instead of fault, yet such dreams seemed as distant as the stars. At dusk, Lyra climbed the narrow tower behind her home to watch the storms that rolled across the desert. Plains lightning danced in the violet sky, and thunder rumbled like an ancient drum. She raised her arms and let her own light pulse in harmony with the storm. For a moment, she felt powerful, connected to something greater. But as soon as she descended back into the city, the loneliness returned, heavy and unyielding. One evening, a small crowd gathered to celebrate the Festival of Harmony in the central courtyard. Music filled the air, and dancers in bright robes. Spun beneath lanterns, Lyra stood at the edge, unseen in the shadows. She watched with longing as families laughed together. A lonely tear traced a line down her cheek, glowing briefly as it caught the light. No one noticed. No one asked if she might join. Her breath caught in her throat and she turned away, sealing her heart further inside. That night, Lyra went to the ancient gardens outside the city walls. The moon was full, and the glass flowers shone like stars around her. She knelt by a pool of clear water and gazed at her reflection. The violet glow of her skin shimmered back at her. She whispered. To her own image, "Why am I alone?" The only answer came from the rustle of silver leaves overhead. The world was quiet, and Lyra felt small and forgotten as dawn approached. Lyra rose and brushed her long hair back from her face. She took a deep breath of the cool morning air. Though her heart ached, she held on to a fragile hope. Somewhere, beyond the marble domes, beyond the judgment and fear, there might be someone who would see her light as something to cherish. With that thought to guide her steps, Lyra descended from the gardens and stepped into the waking city, still an outcast, but daring, for the first time, to believe in the possibility of kindness. Lyra rose before dawn the next morning, her heart still heavy from another day of silence. She wrapped her thin shawl around her shoulders and slipped through the quiet streets toward the desert edge. The air was cool, and the first rays of the twin suns painted the horizon in soft gold. As she approached the ruined watchtower, a strange figure crouched beside a twisted metal frame. The stranger wore a human uniform, scuffed boots, a battered helmet at his side, and a curious badge on his chest. Lyra froze, instinct warning her that humans were unpredictable. Yet something gentle in his posture made her step forward. He worked with careful hands, adjusting wires that led to a broken beacon. Sparks flickered, and the beacon hummed, but then went dark again. Lyra knelt beside him, violet light pulsing softly from her skin. She did not know his language, but she reached out and laid her hand on the beacon's cool metal. A wave of warmth flowed through her fingers, and faint patterns of light traced the wires. The human's head turned, and his visor reflected her glow. His eyes, warm brown, widened in surprise. "Thank you," he said in a low voice. His words came through her translator implant, awkward but clear. Lyra's heart leaped at the sound of her first real conversation. she answered, voice trembling. You are safe. The words felt strange on her tongue, but the machine carried them faithfully.
Oh.
Marcus's veil smiled, relief washing over his worn face. Together they worked side by side under the rising suns.
Outcast
Handed Lyra a human Tula small spinor, and she studied its shape. At first her hands shook, but Marcus guided her fingers with patience. The beacon's circuit board lay exposed, delicate as a flower. Lyra pressed the spanner gently against a loose bolt, and it clicked into place. The beacon flickered to life, casting a warm glow. As the machine whirred, Marcus stood and removed his helmet. He bowed slightly in respect, Lyra's translator. Crackled, I am Lyra. Marcus bowed back. I am Marcus. His voice sounded like music to her ears. They stood in silence, sharing the moment. For Lyra, every breath was sweeter knowing someone called her by name. Hours passed as they tested the beacon and charted a path for Marcus to return to his ship. The desert winds grew strong, whipping sand into small whirlwinds. Lyra's cloak whipped around her, but Marcus reached out and held her arms steady. She looked up at him, startled by such tenderness from a stranger. Her heart raced. By midday, the beacon blinked steadily. Marcus thanked Lyra again, this time placing his hand on his chest, where her glowing light shone through the fabric. Lyra felt warmth bloom in her chest. In all her life, no one had touched her with kindness. She wanted to tell him how his words made her feel, but her voice caught in her throat. Ah! Marcus knelt and looked into her violet eyes. Your gift saved me, he said softly. No one here understands you, but I do. Lyra's tears glimmered as they fell, each one reflecting her own light. She swallowed hard and managed, I want to know you. His smile was gentle like sunrise. As Marcus prepared to depart, he hesitated. He reached into his pack and pulled out a small, crystal, sphere and earth token of friendship. He held it out to Lyra. Keep this, he said. When you feel alone, remember you are not. Lyra accepted the gift with trembling fingers. The sphere shone with inner light, a promise between worlds. They stood together on the desert plain, two beings from different stars, bound by a single moment of trust. Lyra's heart swelled with hope she had never known. As Marcus climbed into his shuttle, Lyra whispered a wish into the wind, that someday she might cross the skies to stand beside him again. When the engines roared and the human vessel lifted into the sky, Lyra watched, until it was nothing but a distant spark. She clutched the crystal to her chest and felt its pulse, echoing her own glow. For the first time, she believed that someone in the universe could see her beauty, her worth, and call her friend. And that belief lit a new flame in her heart, one that would guide her through the loneliness ahead. Lyra awoke before dawn, the crystal sphere clutched in her hand, its soft glow pulsing like a heartbeat. She pressed it to her chest and remembered Marcus's voice. You are not alone. A shy smile curved her lips. For the first time, Lyra felt a spark of joy. She dressed quickly and slipped out of her family's home, eager to see the world with new eyes. The empty streets seemed less cold now, as though they welcomed her light. She carried the sphere to the ancient gardens, where glass flowers bloomed under the rising suns. Lyra placed it on a marble bench and watched its glow mingle with her own. Her violet skin brightened in response, and tiny petals around her shimmered. In that moment, she imagined Marcus standing beside her, offering his hand. A tear fell, glittering in the dawn. She whispered, "Thank you," though the only answer was the soft rustle of silver leaves. Word of Lyra's secret friendship reached the council by midday. A messenger appeared at her home, stern-faced and unyielding. He demanded the crystal sphere and any sign of human influence. Lyra's heart clenched. She hid the sphere within her shawl and followed him in silence.
Ow.
The streets felt narrower now, as though walls pressed in on her light. Each footstep pounded in her chest, fear and determination warring inside her. In the council chambers, Lyra stood before the elders on the high dais. Their robes were white as clouds, their faces hard as stone. The lead elder held the crystal sphere in his hand, turning it over like a precious gem. "Explain this," he commanded. Lyra felt every eye on her glow. She took a trembling breath and said, "A human gave it to me. He showed me kindness." The chamber fell silent, disbelief and anger stirring among the elders. The lead elder's voice was cold. "Humans bring chaos. You disobey our laws by harboring their tokens." He raised a hand, and 2 guards stepped forward. Lyra's pulse raced. She thought of Marcus's gentle smile and the warmth of his hand. Summoning courage she never knew she had, she lifted her voice. "His kindness saved me. My light healed his beacon. I owe him my heart." Her words echoed through the hall, soft but clear. Murmurs rose like wind through reeds. Some elders frowned, but others' faces softened at her honesty. The lead elder's lips thinned. He pointed at Lyra's glowing skin. "Your gift is tainted by human influence. We banish you." Shock froze Lyra's breath. Banishment meant exile, never to return home. Tears blurred her vision, but she pressed her hands together. "I will not hide my light," she said, voice steady, "nor my friendship." Guards seized her arms, but Lyra resisted. Her violet glow flared, bright enough to blind. A wave of light swept the guards back. Lyra gasped at her own power. The sphere slipped from her shawl and rolled across the marble floor, its glow dimming. The elders shielded their eyes. Lyra stood tall, chest heaving. Though fear trembled in her knees, her heart burned with a new strength. Silence held the chamber until a young elder stepped forward. His silver hair caught the light as he bowed to Lyra. "Your courage is true," he said. "Perhaps we have judged too quickly." He turned to the lead elder. "We must learn from her, not punish." The assembly whispered, divided.
Lyra watched them.
Hope and fear tangled in her chest. She remembered Marcus's words, "Love is not a crime." As the debate raged, Lyra knelt to retrieve the crystal sphere. It lay half hidden in a pool of violet light. She picked it up and pressed it to her heart. In that moment, she knew she had changed her world. Whether the elders freed her or sent her away, she carried Marcus's promise inside her. The future was uncertain, but Lyra's light would never fade again. Neither would her hope. Lyra stood in the council chamber as elders shouted and argued around her. Some spoke of fear, others of wonder at her power. The lead elder pounded his staff, calling for order. Lyra pressed her hands to her chest, her violet skin dimming with dread. She realized the debate had reached a dead end. No one would truly accept her. The chamber felt like a cage closing in, each breath heavier than the last. At last, the lead elder's voice cut through the din. "Lyra Vare is hereby banished from Virella Prime," he declared. His words sounded like thunder in Lyra's ears. Her heart pounded so loudly she feared it would burst. She barely noticed the guards as they stepped forward, grabbing her arms. Panic surged through her veins. She tried to speak, but no words came. Only her glow pulsed, bright and frightened. They dragged her down the marble steps and through silent corridors. Citizens pressed aside to watch her pass him with pity, others with scorn.
Lyra's
Eyes filled with tears, blurring the polished walls. She longed to scream, to shout that she did not belong in this world without kindness. But all she could do was walk, each step taking her farther from home, farther from the only life she had ever known.
Ow.
At the great gates, 2 guards forced her to kneel. Beyond them lay the wild desert plains and the line where no citizen dared cross. They read the banishment decree aloud. "Never return," they said. Lyra's lips trembled. She bowed her head, trying to hold back her sobs. Single tear of violet light rolled down her cheek and stained the white stone. No one reached out to comfort her. When the decree ended, the guard shoved her toward the boundary. Lyra stumbled into the harsh sunlight and felt the desert wind whip her hair. The plains stretched endless before her, empty, unforgiving and unforgiving, and vast. Her crystal sphere lay heavy in her pocket, a promise of friendship she feared she had lost. She breathed in the dry air, tasting salt and sand. Her heart ached with loneliness deeper than any before. Lyra rose and pressed her hands to her sides, trying to steady herself. She looked back at the city walls, tall and gleaming under the twin suns. She thought of Marcus's gentle eyes, his kindness, his promise that she was never alone. She whispered into the wind. "Marcus, where are you?" The desert answered only with a mournful howl. Determination flared in Lyra's chest. She would not let fear bind her. She unfolded her shawl and wrapped it around her shoulders. With slow, steady steps, she walked into the desert. Each foot sank into soft sand, but her violet glow pulsed brighter as if guiding her forward. She would find her own path, even if it led her into the unknown. Night fell quickly in the desert. Lyra stopped beneath a lone rock outcrop to rest. She pulled out the crystal sphere and held it to her heart. Its light was faint but steady. She closed her eyes and remembered Marcus's words. "Your light is beautiful."
Oh.
She let the warmth of that memory calm her fear. Tentatively, she pressed the sphere against her skin and watched the glow spread like gentle fire. A distant rumble made Lyra start. Sand shifted at the horizon, and a glow appeared, two bright lights moving toward her. Her heart pounded. Could it be? She rose and shielded her eyes against the glare. A human shuttle descended, its engines stirring the sand. Lyra's breath caught. She did not know how she would reach him, but hope thrummed in her veins louder than her fear. As the shuttle landed, Lyra took a trembling step forward. The desert wind died away, and for a moment, the world held its breath. Lyra's violet glow shone like a beacon. She reached out to the sky and whispered, "I'm here." Oh. And in that instant, she knew she was no longer alone in the universe. Lyra's heart pounded as the shuttle's ramp lowered in the desert dusk. The engines hummed low, stirring sand around her glowing feet. She stepped forward, uncertain if she dared trust her eyes. Then Marcus appeared at the threshold, his uniform dusty but his smile as warm as sunrise. He held out his hand. Lyra hesitated a moment, then slipped her small fingers into his strong grip. Relief flooded her chest. Behind Marcus, two human soldiers stood watch. Their rifles trained on the glittering horizon, where council drones circled like angry birds. Marcus nodded curtly to them, and one soldier signaled to the pilot. The shuttle's engines roared louder, ready to lift off. Lyra's violet glow pulsed faster, a steady beacon in the gathering night. She clung to Marcus's hand as she climbed the ramp, each step a victory over the fear that had haunted her. Inside the shuttle, the cabin was cramped but safe. Sank onto a bench and pressed the crystal sphere to her lips. Its soft light mingled with her shine, creating a gentle warmth. Marcus knelt beside her, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "You're safe now," he whispered. Lyra's breath trembled as tears of joy filled her eyes. She smiled and nodded, her heart soaring higher than any ship. Outside, the council's drones darted closer. Red lights pulsed around the shuttle's hull. Marcus barked orders into his radio. The pilot tuned the engines to full power. Lyra felt the shuttle lift, trembling beneath her feet as the desert floor fell away. She pressed her hands against the metal wall and looked out the small window. The ground was a sea of dust and lights chasing them into the sky. As the ship rose, Lyra's violet glow flared bright, casting soft light across the cabin. The sudden glare startled the soldiers, but Marcus placed a steady hand on her shoulder. "It's okay," he said. "Your gift will protect us." Lyra closed her eyes and focused her light into a shield around the shuttle. Outside, the drone's beams collided with her glow and flickered like sparks on water. Each pulse of her light pushed them back, guiding the shuttle higher. Once above the atmosphere, the cabin lights dimmed and the hum of engines softened. Lyra sank back, exhausted and elated. Marcus handed her a water flask. She drank gratefully, feeling the cool liquid calm her racing heart. He watched her with pride and something more tender admiration shining in his eyes. Lyra's glow pulsed in return, a silent promise between them. The pilot leaned forward in the cockpit. "We've reached safe orbit," he reported. Lyra peered through the viewport at the curve of her homeworld, its twin suns now distant stars. Her chest tightened with both sorrow and hope.
Ow.
She whispered, "Goodbye, Varela Prime." Marcus slipped beside her and wrapped his arm around her shoulders. "A new journey begins," he said softly. Lyra rested her head against him, feeling the steady beat of his heart. In the quiet after the storm, Lyra found her voice. "Thank you," she said, her words drifting between them like stardust, "for believing in me." Marcus kissed her forehead, gentle and sure. "I will always believe in you," he promised. The crystal sphere pulsed between them, as if echoing his vow. Far below, Varela Prime spun in its lonely orbit. Above, the shuttle carried Lyra and Marcus toward human space and unknown adventures. Lyra looked forward to what lay ahead, her fear replaced by courage. In Marcus's arms, she felt at home for the first time. As stars stretched into lines outside the window, Lyra closed her eyes and let her violet light glow softly, content. In the promise of tomorrow, Lyra stood by the shuttle's viewport, watching the stars drift past like silent fireflies. Beyond the glass, the dark of space felt endless. She no longer felt small. Marcus joined her, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. His warmth made her glow brighter. She leaned into him and let out a soft sigh. For the first time, she felt safe away from home. The shuttle docked at Nova Horizon Station, a human outpost buzzing with activity. Lyra's heart fluttered as the airlock doors opened. Soldiers and engineers paused to stare at her violet skin and glowing aura. Some stepped back in fear. Others watched with curiosity. Lyra's pulse quickened. She remembered the council's rejection, but here she had Marcus. He took her hand and led her forward. Inside the station's main corridor, an alarm blared. Red lights flashed overhead. Engineers rushed past, shouting about a reactor failure in the life support wing. The station trembled as gravity flickered. Lyra gasped, fear and concern filling her chest. Marcus pulled her toward the elevator. "We can help them," he said. Lyra nodded, determination shining in her eyes. They reached the life support deck to find corridors dark and cold. Crew members hovered by emergency panels, faces drawn with worry. The reactor core lay exposed behind a broken door. Sparks flew as wires whipped in the empty air. Without life support, the station's thousands would suffocate. Lyra's heart pounded. She swallowed her fear and took a step forward. Lyra placed her hands on the reactor's metal casing. Her violet glow flared and spread over the panels like silk. The flickering light steadied as her warmth soothed the failing circuits. Marcus knelt beside her, guiding sparks away with a hand tool. Together, they worked in silence, her light healing the broken wires, his hands tightening bolts. Slowly, the reactor's hum grew steady again. Lights returned throughout the deck, and the gravity stabilized with a gentle thump. Crew members cheered and rushed forward. One engineer reached out to touch Lyra's glowing arm. She trembled, but did not pull away. The engineer's face softened with awe. "Thank you," he whispered. Lyra's chest swelled with pride and relief. Marcus squeezed her hand, smile bright like dawn. That evening, the station commander held a ceremony in the observation lounge. A crowd gathered around Lyra and Marcus. The commander bowed deeply. "Lyra Vea saved us today," he said. "A gift is a blessing, not a curse." The assembly erupted into applause. Lyra felt tears of joy spill down her cheeks, glowing softly. She looked at Marcus, who smiled with pride and admiration in his eyes. Later, Lyra and Marcus walked along the station's gardens, an enclosed dome of plants and flowers from many worlds. Violet petals drifted around them like falling snow. Lyra held the crystal sphere in one hand and Marcus's in the other. They paused beneath a glass tree, its branches glowing with bioluminescent fruit. Lyra looked up at Marcus. "Do you think I have a place here?" she asked, voice barely above a whisper. "Ow." Marcus knelt and brushed her hair back. "You have a place wherever you choose," he replied. "You brought life back to this station. Here you belong." Lyra's violet glow brightened, filling the garden with gentle light, as they stood together beneath alien blooms. Lyra knew she had found true home, not in the marble halls of her birth, but in the warmth of a human heart and the bonds they built. Her fear and loneliness faded like distant stars, replaced by hope that shone brighter than any twin sun. Lyra and Marcus stood together on the observation deck of Nova Horizon Station, watching the glow of distant nebulae. The enclosed glass walls framed brilliant colors, pinks and blues swirling across the void. Lyra's violet light pulsed softly in harmony with the cosmic display. She felt peace settle in her chest, warm and steady. Marcus turned to her, his brown eyes shining. "Tomorrow we leave for Varela Prime," he said gently. Lyra nodded, excitement and nerves dancing in her heart. She thought of the council, chambers where they had banished her, and of the people who had never smiled at her glow. She wondered how they would greet her return. That night, Marcus and Lyra walked through the station's quiet corridors. Crew members paused to greet them, offering bows and nods. Lyra returned each greeting with a soft glow and a smile. Her heart lifted at every friendly word. She realized how far she had come from lonely outcast to honored savior. Before dawn, Lyra visited the station gardens one last time. She touched the glass petals of an alien flower, each one glowing like a star. She whispered into the still air, "Thank you for giving me a home." The flower's light brightened, and Lyra felt as if the garden answered her in its own gentle way. When morning came, the shuttle prepared for departure. Lyra climbed aboard in her ceremonial robes, a gift from the station commander, violet fabrics woven with human symbols of hope. Marcus helped her adjust the robes and placed a medal on her chest. Ambassador of Unity. Lyra's glow flared. With pride and gratitude, the journey to Varela Prime was swift in human space. Lyra held Marcus's hand as the familiar twin suns rose before her. The shuttle descended through shimmering atmosphere, and she saw the marbled domes of her homeland below. Her breath caught. She realized this return would change everything for her people and for all worlds. At the landing plaza, citizens gathered. In silence, some faces were curious, some wary. The council stood at the front, their expressions unreadable. Lyra stepped forward, her heart steady. Marcus stood beside her, unwavering. Lyra raised her voice so all could hear. "I came back, not to beg forgiveness, but to offer friendship. My light brought life to others. Let it bring hope to you." Her violet glow spread across the plaza like sunrise. Marcus placed his hand over his heart and bowed. A hush fell, and one elder stepped forward, tears in his eyes. He reached out and touched Lyra's glowing hand. "Welcome home," he said. Slowly, others joined, placing hands on Lyra and Marcus. Laughter and tears mixed as walls of fear melted away. In that moment, Lyra knew her journey had led her back to where she belonged, among her people, with Marcus by her side. Under two suns, she felt truly home at last, her light a bridge between worlds and hearts forever united.